The Fever Dream of the Maltese Falcon, a Taipei Noir, year 2080, Episode 8. Lummix made her way to the Great Eastern Hotel. 150 credits to sleep here, assessed Lummix, stepping into the lobby. This Dàshān fellow was rich, she thought, or at least he liked to present himself as being rich. It was good to get away from the 45-degree heat into the soft, conditioned air of the hotel. She punched in the key code to Dàshān's suite and went up in the air chute. A noiseless, smooth ride. None of that clunky body transportation pod stuff. That was so last century and rather loud. The air chute was literally that. You stepped into an air tunnel and you were taken wherever you needed to go, as if on an invisible magic carpet. It was a beautiful sight. Hundreds of bodies in the air, in an intricate dance, choreographed as if by magic, getting to places they needed to be in just minutes. Though the technology had been around for 10 years, only the most expensive and exclusive buildings could afford it. The public could sample it in only the most expensive malls. But this building wasn't crowded like a mall. It almost looked deserted, one of the selling points, supposed Lummix. All discreet, quiet, and strictly high class. Detective rule number 7. Always pay attention to how the Dàshāns of the world like to present themselves. She was at the door already. Before she could open it, the door flew open. They had been waiting for her. The generously proportioned, expensive, genial-looking Dàshān. He looked like a Dàshān. And there was Frenchie sweating as usual and occupying more space than his size warranted. Wessel followed her in and made a move to pat her down. "None of that," barked Lummix. "I'll kick him in the nuts if he as much as touches me. I am packing, and here it is." She took out her Whiplash 13 and waved it at them. Dàshān giggled, delighted. "I like your style, Miss Lummix," he chuckled. "And I can use it, too," she said dryly as she put her gun away. "It keeps things pleasant. Now don't let this run here provoke me into turning him into a tea strainer," she said, nodding at Wessel. "Of course, Miss Lummix, so full of spirit. You are living proof that our 100 years of oppression are finally avenged by a unified, patriotic nation whose heart beats as one." Here Dàshān put a chubby hand on his heart and looked suitably patriotic. "Right. No more of that terrible Baini and Guoqi for us here," said Lummix. Dàshān smiled broadly. "You see that, Wessel? That's called spirit. We should all follow her. And that's okay, Wessel. You can do away with formalities." Dàshān shifted his bulky, swathed-in-silk self to a well-stocked bar. "Please make yourself comfortable, Miss Lummix. I am having some 400-year-old whiskey. Would you care for some?" "No, thanks," said Lummix. "A plain old electric gin with tonic will do." Sure, said Dàshān amiably, and proceeded to mix her drink. "I see that you got all the lowlifes from this part of the galaxy here." Lummix indicated an unhappy-looking Frenchie and the glowering Wessel. "You are charming, Miss Lummix, if I may say so," said Dàshān. "Were you always like this, or did you put together your personal style, bit by bit, as you went along?" "Huh." She just grunted in response, and he handed her the electric gin. "Enough with the chit-chat. Why did you want to meet?" said Lummix as she took a sip of her drink. Damn, it was a good electric gin. "Straight to the point. I like that. Very well. Let me begin by asking, what do you know about the cure?" "Nothing much, other than it's something you and Frenchie here are willing to pay decent money for." Sure. Well, let me tell you the history of the cure." "Did it ever even exist?" Lummix cut in. "Oh, yes, of course it existed. It was invented by a doctor in Mexico City. Quite by accident, as it turns out. I won't go into the details, but the doctor, who was half Zapotec, managed to cure his children's nanny with a combination of some herbs and over-the-counter medicines. When it worked, he got his colleagues at the university to isolate the ingredients, and he started making the pills in the basement. He was selling them from his clinic. I was going to get them from him, but he got murdered. And they say it was an ordinary mugging, but I am not so sure. And there were only 50 pills left in the world. The British royals got 10, which they lost during Prince William's settlement. The CIA tried to get some, and their operative mysteriously died. The Saudi royal family got 10, and they got lost when the crown prince lost his mind and shot up the entire family. 10 are with the Kim family in North Korea, and the last 10 were stashed in a diamond mine in South Africa. I went there to get them, but alas, it was too late. The Sultan of Brunei had already got them. He gave the box to his favorite wife, and from there it wound up in a Hong Kong gangster's apartment. The kid was in charge of stealing it with the help of Frenchie, and they got the box, but that horrible little thief turned out to be very clever. He gave both Frenchie and me the slip. He claims he's lost it. Maybe he has. The bottom line is, we want you to get it for us. That's quite a story, said Lummix, impressed despite herself. But there was always a but. But a vaccine exists. Why do you need a cure? Isn't a vaccine enough? You see, the pill will immunize you forever. You'll never get a virus again. It changes the DNA of your white blood cells. With a virus that mutates constantly and very quickly, you never know when it's going to strike. You can never let your guard down. True, you can never let your guard down, but isn't that just life? You never know where trouble is coming from, and the only thing you can be sure of is that it will come when you least expect it, said Lummix. True, you can be a very rich man, but you can't completely be safe. The pill will cure all that. It makes you invincible, and some of us will pay top dollar for it. And what's more, I'll take one and then hold the others for ransom. For ransom? How? Prompted Lummix. I'll auction them to the highest bidder so that it can be reverse engineered, and I can hold all the rights. You'll be a very rich man, Mr. Dàshān. Dàshān giggled. I will be the richest man, that's for sure, but that's not what interests me. So what's your angle then? I'll hold the lives of so many people in my hand. I can control who is safe and who isn't. That's power, real power. Money is just a byproduct. He laughed, delighted. Lummix couldn't bring herself to even smile politely. Hope the cure works the way you think it will, she said dryly. Dàshān's smile left his face abruptly, and he frowned. I know what I'm doing. Okay, said Lummix. Where do you think the box is now? Somewhere between Shanghai and Taipei. We lost track of it after Shanghai, when the kid gave us the slip. Now the kid doesn't have it either, or so he claims. Like I said, we want you to find it for us. We'll make it worth your while. 1 million credits. We are willing to pay you 1 million credits. No, cash. 1 million imperial notes. Okay, imperial notes. I'll give you 200,000 right now. Lummix held up her hand. I'll need 750,000 in imperial notes up front. Dàshān looked shocked for a moment, and then his good humor returned. Of course, you have it. He waved a hand at Wessel, who gave Lummix a dirty look, and went to the next room and brought a box. It was full of cash. Dàshān counted out the money and handed it to Lummix. She checked the notes against the light. They were the real thing. Very nice, she thought to herself. As she started putting them into her pocket, she started feeling sleepy. Very, very sleepy. And why were they all watching her so intently? It looked as if they had gotten quite close and were staring at her. Then Wessel kicked her on the shins. That should have hurt a lot more than it did. Hey, she murmured as she fell down. She tried to get up, but her body felt very heavy, and she collapsed on the floor. She felt Wessel kick her again. Don't be so uncouth, Wessel, Frenchie said, his voice full of distaste. Come on, boy, no time to waste, said Dàshān. This was the last thing Lummix heard before she lost all consciousness. When Lummix opened her eyes, it was evening. She'd been out for hours. The room was quiet. She sat up with a groan. She felt her pocket. Her gun was still there. So was her money. She guessed they didn't mean any disrespect, but they just needed her out of the way for a few hours. And she'd been out of the way for 3 whole hours, and a lot can happen over 3 hours. She staggered to the bathroom and splashed some cold water on her face and drank a couple of glasses. She shook herself out like an old dog and focused her eyes to take in her reflection. She looked like hell. She went back to the room and took the gun out of her pocket and held it ready. She quickly searched the room. She was well and truly alone. Then she went over everything again, looking for any clue as to where they were, what they were up to. There was nothing that she could see that would help her know. Nothing. Dàshān was good. Not a sign as to what he was planning. Not a trace on the navigation system. Not a piece of paper anywhere. Yes, Dàshān was careful. Maybe she'd try the old-fashioned method of asking a real live person. Lummix picked up the house phone. "Hello, this is the front desk," said a voice promptly at the other end. "Do you know where Mr. Dàshān has gone? We had an appointment for 6. He gave me a key card and told me to come back here, but he isn't here." "Ma'am, he went to the train station." "Do you know what train he took?" "He asked about the Silver Shanghai's timings. I believe he had to pick up someone. Perhaps the train is late. It often is," added the overzealous front desk person at the other end. "Thank you," said Lummix as she put down the phone. Her first lucky break. To get an enthusiastic newbie on the job on the phone, she had all the information she needed. The Silver Shanghai Express was a train that came once a week from New Shanghai. That was all the traffic that the cross-channel authorities would allow. Their excuse was that poor profitability made it impossible to maintain the system. And now it was the epidemic. But in reality, they did not want to spend anything on this rebellious province of the empire. They also didn't want to encourage too much traffic between the island and the mainland. Still, people took it, despite the inconvenience. Well, mostly the lowlifes in New Taipei and New Shanghai took it. The authorities didn't pay much attention to it, and it was known as the petty smuggling corridor between the two places. And within a well-oiled machine of bribes, it was a lucrative beat for the local cops, and they pretty much left you alone. So, something was coming through on the Silver Shanghai Express, something important enough that Dàshān, Frenchie, and their runt of a sidekick, Wessel, had left. Was the kid with them? Better check on the kid, thought Lummix. She'd tell a hello Xiaohua, who appeared at once. "Where were you? I've been tele-helloing, and you wouldn't pick up." Xiaohua looked anxious. I was at a party with a lot of cute guys," Lummix deadpanned. Xiaohua rolled her eyes as Lummix added, "I was having fun." "Yeah, right. I have been worried sick," said Xiaohua. "Did the kid get to you okay?" "He never showed up." Subscribe to Taipei Noir on Spotify, Apple, and Google, or wherever you get your podcast. And please share with friends. Taipei Noir is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives 4.0 International License, which means share it with your friends, but don't use it in your own work and don't sell it. See you on the downside.